wears short shorts. Joan Bradshaw, posing in front of Capitol Records with a cute pup, she starred in a few films but is most well known for her producing career. Among the oil rigs on Signal Hill in Los Angeles in 1941, an industrial landscape is in full swing, marking the area of the oil industry and creating a characteristic image of the city at the time. Our team did our best to make this video interesting for you guys. We'd appreciate your likes and subscribe. Enjoy! And Hollywood icon, entertainer Rita Hayworth, cruised down the street near Warner Bros. Studio in LA. At the time, she was married to Edward Judson, but that was her first of 5 marriages, 1939. Your cookouts probably don't like this one. Back in the 1940s, young people donned their retro swimsuits and cooked beachside in Los Angeles. As the United States was in throes of World War II, there was trouble in Los Angeles too. The Zoot Suit riots took place in June 1943 and involved U.S. servicemen and young Mexican Americans. This aerial view of Cahuenga Parkway in the Hollywood Hills is hardly visible, thanks to Los Angeles' serious smoke problem. There's more where that came from in the following slides. We're thinking everyone started taking their photos here after seeing just how cool Fleetwood Mac looked posing near the Hollywood sign. Hollywood and Vine Street in Los Angeles is a historic and iconic location located in the Hollywood district. The intersection has become a symbol of entertainment and the film industry. Hollywood Street used to be where you could find not only race cars but also girls of the most ancient profession. A girl in bikini is seen bathing on the balcony of her luxury room in Los Angeles. The city is known for its climate. It is always sunny and comfortable. Manhattan Beach. Cheerleaders quench their thirst with a delicious drink. The atmosphere of the photo conveys the carefree atmosphere and relaxation under the scorching sun of Los Angeles. This remarkable colors photographs shows the street of Los Angeles between the 1940s and the 1960s. At the beginning of the 20th century, Los Angeles continued to grow and in the nearly 1920s overtook San Francisco in size. Los Angeles continued to expand, especially with the development of the San Fernando Valley and the construction of highways begun in the 1940s. Hollywood High School, Los Angeles, 1941. Only the imposing school building and vintage cars are visible, which apart creating the atmosphere of the era and the impression of tranquility in those times. Looking east on Wilshire Boulevard from Detroit Street in Los Angeles in 1941, the classic architecture of the buildings and vintage cars are noted, creating the atmosphere of historic Los Angeles and transporting us back in time. A northbound perspective on Western Boulevard in Wilshire, Los Angeles, 1941, shows the atmosphere of old Los Angeles with its characteristic architecture and cars of the period gleaming on the streets. Looking east on Hollywood Boulevard from Cahuenga in Los Angeles in 1943, the view captures a vibrant image of Hollywood with prominent architecture and traffic that conveys the energy and dynamism of the period. Looking west from Hope Street, Los Angeles, 1948, the photo shows a bunch of vintage cars, probably a car market. In October 1945, film workers conducted a strike against Warner Bros. Studio, picketing and fighting with the Burbank police. This was just one of many labor strikes in the entertainment industry. On a seemingly more peaceful day in 1945, you can see a palm tree along the side of Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles. Is there anything more glamorous than Hollywood at night? In 1951, you could look forward Hollywood Boulevard and see the Pantex Theater and the Broadway Hollywood Building, among other locales. Architect Bernard Judge had a pretty incredible view while building this geodesic dome house. The feat was ultimately completed 2 years after this was taken. Back in 1963, the Amalgamated Flying Saucer Club of America was proud to release this image taken by one of their members. As it proved that there were extraterrestrials on Earth, we may never know. Another hot ticket in 1964 was to see the Beatles perform live at the Hollywood Bowl. Weren't alive to see it? You can purchase their album while recordings from the show on Amazon. Presidential hopeful Jimmy Carter saw an opportunity to secure California voters when he supported Proposition 14. Here you can see the warm welcome when he visited Los Angeles. Los Angeles was home to the games of the 23rd Olympiad, and several competitions were held at the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum. The games were returned to LA in 2028. Santa Monica Pier is an iconic attraction and historical landmark in Los Angeles, located on the Pacific Coast. Built in 1909, the pier serves as entertainment and tourist complex. This image shows a lone man walking down the street from a high angle. He's wearing a blue suit and holding a document or newspaper. The photo was taken from above, from a considerable height. Three men are standing next to a car, their faces and postures exuding confidence and character. The man in the center is looking directly at the camera. His gaze betrays confidence or challenge. A group of people of different ages and statuses share a common fate, relaxing and gathered together on a city street. All of them are dressed in flabbily worn-out suits and coats, indicative of the difficult times they're going through. Our team did our best to make this video interesting for you guys. We'd appreciate your likes and subscribe. Enjoy! The photograph shows a woman sitting on a stone fence overlooking a mountain. She is dressed in light summer clothes and sunglasses, which may indicate warm weather and a sunny day. In this color photograph, we see a city street with buildings with large storefronts on the left and a sidewalk with pedestrians and a public transport stop on the right. The image is characterized by bright colors and crisp light. In this image, we see a street that exudes the atmosphere of classic American city in the mid-20th century. The street is alive with people in stylish suits and hats meeting, chatting, and some of them are heading out in their cars. In this photo, we see a woman leaning on a classic 1950s car. She's dressed in summer clothes, which emphasizes the carefree atmosphere and bright sunlight in the image. In this photo, we see a vibrant street scene taking place probably in an entertainment district or at a fair. Various signs and advertisements can be seen on the street offering entertainment and food, including the words cocktails. This photo shows a city street full of life and color, reminiscent from the 1960s. People dressed in the fashionable clothes of the time create the feeling of a bright and lively era. Men and women, young and old, walk along the sidewalk. In the photo, we see a winter landscape with a stone natural arc in the background. A man is standing on the roadside, watching the view. It seems he stopped and enjoyed the moment or take the photo. The photo shows a vintage car with the trunk and rear door open. It is parked on the side of a dirt road next to the green trees. The car has the characteristic features of cars from the 50s and 60s. This photograph embodies the classic elegance and luxury of the 1950s. In the center of composition is a woman sitting on the hood of a chic red convertible, her outfit and style perfectly matching the fashion of the period. In this photo, we see a group of people enjoying the beauty of a mountain landscape. They are standing on a stone platform with a high wall, probably an observation post or part of a mountain shelter. The photo shows a winter landscape that looks like a ski resort. People wearing ski equipment and skiing or just standing on a slope covered with snow. Several pairs of skis are visible on the left side of the frame, stuck in the snow. This photograph shows an old white car parked near a fence on a waterfront. Behind the car is a water surface, indicating that the location is near the sea or large lake. A cityscape with buildings of different heights can be seen on the horizon. The photo shows a crowded street scene, probably a large city in the mid-20th century. You can see that people are wearing stylish hats and coats, which was typical for the time. Many of them are looking towards the modern world. This photo seems to be a snapshot from the past. It shows a city street in rainy weather with wet sidewalks reflecting neon signs and building facades. Cars from the mid-20th century are parked along the street. The photo shows a cozy city scene that seems to have been captured from the mid-20th century. A group of people are waiting next to a bus with the words "Carter Service" on it. The photo shows a scene from the past, probably from the 1950s. Two men are standing next to a classic pink American car parked on the sidewalk. One of the men, wearing a jacket and hat, appears to be resting. The photo shows a street that exudes the vintage charm of an old city. We can see the facade of an old buildings that have been marked by the time. The windows are darkened and the paint has begun to peel off. It's a winter day in classic American neighborhood that preserved the spirit of the last century. Old, elegant, British houses with ornamental details on their facades stand in harmony with the white snow covering the ground. In this image, we see a real gem of the past, a two-tone station wagon car painted in bright red and white, which looks like it has been pulled out of pages of history. In this black and white photograph, we see a contrasting image of urban life. A young man in a white t-shirt and light pants is riding a mighty horse in the middle of the city center. The shot was possibly taken in New York City. This colorful photograph shows a busy street that appears to be a part of the city's Chinatown. Numerous signs in Chinese are visible pointing to restaurants, shops, and other commercial establishments. A girl in a patterned dress with a bow in her hair holds a large black dog on a leash. Next to her is an older man who leans down to pet the dog, showing a moment of connection between generations and between man and animal. A young boy tenderly holding his four-legged friend, a cat, who seems completely content with the attention. The boy is sitting on a doorstep, his concentrated expression and hand movements revealing a gentle attitude toward the cat. Dark, three-piece suits with hats or caps were a standard outfit for men in the 1910s. By 1922, women's fashion had largely ditched and cinched waists and corsets of the early 1900s. Our team did our best to make this video interesting for you guys. We'd appreciate your likes and subscribe. Enjoy! In the 1930s, simple and feminine silhouettes were quite popular. During this decade, many women wore dresses that had belted waists, large collars, and hemlines down the one's calves or ankles. Some women's street fashion in the early 1940s were quite structured. Some pieces of women's clothing in the 1940s featured squared shoulders, minimal pleating, and skirts that ended at or just above the knee. In the 1940s, it became a bit more popular for women to wear pants. Although they were oftentimes loosely fitted, the pants were typically worn, cinched, and belted at the waist. In the 1940s, many styles of women's coats were designed to be loose-fitting with a cinched waist that was meant to emphasize or create the illusion of an hourglass silhouette. In the late 1940s, women's street style featured A-line dresses and an emphasis on creating the appearance of an hourglass-shaped silhouette. Some men in the 1940s could be seen wearing zoot suits. Some say the zoot suit was created when people began to uniquely tailor regular suits that were 2 sizes too large for the individuals wearing them. This is what women's fashion looked like in the USA in the 1950s. Back then, every dress looked like it was from the fashion catwalk. We really like the period. What do you think? Jackie Maisel in the heather wool suit with low pockets and the rear and skirt panel seamed with fine stitching by Bernard Sagerboy. First by Roger Model. Photo by Potier, 1957. Simone in beautiful reversible heather and white tweed coat over grey tweed suit by Manguin. Fur by Cecile Billard. Handbag by Prost. Photo by Portier, 1957. In the 1950s, dresses were sometimes paired with capes, bits of fabric designed to cover one's shoulder. The woman in the photograph is wearing a removable cape that's been crafted from the same fabric as her dress. With the arrival of the 1960s, dresses and skirts with shorter hemlines became quite popular. During this time, women also began wearing pants that had a slimmer fit and came in more vibrant colors and patterns. A trend that's recently become prominent again, while boots first began rising in popularity in the 1960s. Boots that went up to one's ankle or one's calf were quite popular during this decade, and they were sold in classic colors. Former First Lady Jackie Kennedy was a major style icon in the 1960s, and she was well known for wearing skirt suits, a button-up blazer that's been paired with the matching skirt. Men's street fashion in the early 1970s included fitted pants and fan patterns. Throughout the 1970s, many women and men also wore loose pants with fitted tops. And during the decade, many black men and women wore their hair naturally in afros, which became a significant style. Bold patterns and feathered hair were all the rage in the 1980s. It's no secret that 1980s street style was often bold. People would often be seen rocking bright colors and patterns with short shorts and big hair. In the 1980s, more women were going to work than ever before, and the street style also saw more bold silhouettes, including shoulder pads, tucked-in blouses with the white pants, tights, and pencil skirts. Street style in the 1990s took some cues from the 1970s and 1980s with fishnets, bold colors, and animal print. Women often wore high-neck shirts with patterned miniskirts and threw on backpacks for good measure. In the 1990s, even playful styles had a hint of grunge. In the 1990s, street style meant playing with the lengths and layers. Tiny crop tops would be layered with oversized jacket to give a hint of grunge. Beer truck at NBC Theater. A beer truck parked outside the NBC Theater. Its vividly colored advertisements contrasting sharply with the theater's elegant facade. The lively chatter of theater-goers mixed with the clicking of bottles. A man playing a guitar promotes the film Johnny Guitar on the sidewalks of Times Square in the spring of 1954. His music echoes amidst the neon lights and bustling crowds, capturing the essence of the era. Our team did our best to make this video interesting for you guys. We'd appreciate your likes and subscribe. Enjoy! A man bracing against the crisp chill of the air finds solace in a small act of warmth. He wraps himself in a thick coat, his hands cupped around a steaming mug or nestled deep in his pockets. In the 1950s, two women in white shirts captured the essence of the era's fashion and freedom. They stride confidently, embodying the spirit of independence and style that marked the decade. Across from the St. Patrick's Cathedral, where the bustling streets merge with the serene presence of historic architecture, the vibrant echo of the city's heartbeat blends with the solemn whispers of the past. Two men have a conversation in a coffee place near Times Square in April of 1954. Two men engage in a deep conversation at a quaint coffee place, amidst the aroma of freshly brewed coffee and the soft chatter of cups. Professional skaters execute turn in mid-air, Rockefeller Center. The scene, set against the iconic backdrop of the Rockefeller Center, captures the elegance and athleticism of figure skating. Shoe shine and horn-hearted automat. A scene unfolds of a shoe shine in full swing. Amidst the clatter of dishes and the hum of conversation, the rhythmic strokes of the shoe shine brush create a melody of their own. A moment of relaxation unfolds quietly as someone finds tranquility in their own peaceful corner of the world. This could be a serene setting, like a sun-dappled garden or a cozy nook with a comfortable chair and good book. From the vibrant heart of Chinatown, a view unfolds that is rich in cultural texture and bustling activity. Streets are lined with colorful shops and markets, displaying an array of exotic goods and traditional wares. The photo shows a group of people sitting on stone steps outside a building. From left to the right, we see two adult men sitting on the lower steps and four boys sitting on the steps above. In this photo, we see streets seen short from behind. Two adult men and a boy stand on the edge of the sidewalk, leaning on an old car. The men are wearing classic coats and hats typical of the mid-20th century fashion. This photo shows a young man playing baseball in a city park. He's wearing classic clothing, light pants and a dark shirt with the sleeves rolled up. The man is actively moving, apparently running after the ball or having just thrown it. The photo shows a man sleeping on a staircase outside, with a newspaper in his hand. In the background is another person reading the newspaper. The scene could represent daily life in a city. The image shows a group of men holding bowling balls, posing for a photograph, probably in a bowling club. They look happy and ready to play, reflecting the camaraderie of the team sport. In New York City, 1970, a prize there in dark glasses presents an intriguing contrast. He walks the streets, blending the solemnity of his religious vocation with a hint of mystery and modernity. In 1973, a couple sits at a cafe in Central Park, their conversation intimate and full of ease. The park around them is alive with sights and sounds of the early 1970s New York. But within their small table, there's a bubble of personal space. In 1973, an intriguing encounter unfolds between a Hare Krishna follower and a blind man, symbolizing a meeting of spiritual devotion and personal resilience. The Hare Krishna, in traditional robes and chanting. In 1873, three car salesmen stand side by side, epitomizing the era's business ethos and style. Dressed in suits that reflect the fashion of the time, they exude confidence and persuasion, characteristics essential to their trade. In 1973, a tender moment unfolds as a girl and a woman, perhaps a mother and a daughter, reach out to touch horses. This scene set against a backdrop that could be a farm or a rural fair. In Central Park, 1973, a couple sits leisurely with their baby, who is playfully wrapped in newspaper. The scene and snapshot of family life set against the large backdrop of the park. In New York City, 1968, an Asian girl stands with her hand gracefully lifted to her hair, embodying a moment of youthful elegance and introspection. Her expression and posture reflect the vibrant yet complex spirit of the late 60s. In 1973, a pregnant scene unfolds. A group of individuals, men and women, navigate a setting with the aid of crutches. Their resilience and determination are evident in their movements. In 1975, a vivid scene unfolds. Two men stand at pipes to get a better view of a parade. Their elevated position gives them a unique perspective over the crowd, reflecting the excitement and communal spirit of the event. On a street corner of the East Side in 1973, a man stands holding a shopping bag, a snapshot of everyday life in this era. The streets around him buzz with the distinctive energy of the time, as people pass by in the fashion of the early 70s. The international opening of Paradise Hotel and Casino in Bahamas in 1968 was a glamorous and extravagant event. One of the highlights of this grand opening was the presence of painted model. In 1968, a Beatles fan would have been part of a global phenomenon, as the band was at the height of its popularity and influence. This fan, likely a teenager or young adult, would have been deeply immersed in the culture and music. Our team did our best to make this video interesting for you guys. We'd appreciate your likes and subscribe. Enjoy! Dorm life in 1967 was a unique blend of traditional college experiences and the emerging counterculture of the 1960s. Students across American universities were living in an era of significant social and political change. In 1969, Southern California high school students were at the forefront of a cultural shift that was sweeping across America. This era, marked by significant social, political, and cultural changes, greatly influenced the lifestyle. In the 1960s, Malibu Beach in California was a quintessential symbol of the Southern California lifestyle. Renowned for its sun, surf, and sand, the image of cars lining the beachfront during the era is emblematic of the freedom. In vintage hair salon, which interior is reminiscent of the 1950s or 1960s. The real art of hairdressing takes place. Large mirrors with elegant frames reflect the luxurious hairstyles of women, each of which is unique and impressive. It's 1963, Palermo, and a family is riding an old vintage scooter into town to buy groceries. It was a city of contrasts, where historical monuments such as the famous Teatro Massimo and the Capuchin catacombs. In 1967, the Abilene Track Club, located in Texas, was the epitome of sportsmanship and camaraderie. The city of Abilene, known for its traditional American culture, actively supported local sporting events. In 1968, Venice Beach, California, hosted an unforgettable rock festival that was a vivid expression of the culture and spirit of the late 1960s. The festival was an oasis of counterculture for rock music lovers. The Altamont Speedway Free Festival, held in 1969 in Livermore, California, was a pivotal event in the history of rock music and the 1960s counterculture. In the era before digital technology, a fancy typewriter shop in New York could be considered the Apple Store of its time, especially well known for its eye-catching displays. Imagine a storefront on a bustling New York street in the mid-20s. In 1960, a visit to the Arc de Triomphe in Paris was a romantic and iconic experience for lovers. The Arc de Triomphe, standing majestically at the western end of the Champs-Élysées. A couple holds their newborn babies up for their grandparents to see from the other side of the Berlin Wall. The Berlin Wall, a stark symbol of the Cold War divide, separated families and loved ones in East and West Berlin in 1961. The March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom in 1963 was a monumental event in the history of the civil rights movement in the United States. This peaceful demonstration in 1969, at Corona del Mar High School in California, a unique fashion trend among students showcased the vibrant and expressive styles of the era. Students were seen wearing extremely colorful Pucci tights. In 1966, the role of a mirror maid in Chicago was a unique and somewhat novel position, especially in an era where women in such roles were becoming more visible in the public sphere. A meter maid responsible for enforcing parking. In 1966, the cultural exchange between the West and Japan was in fascinating phase, and this was reflected in something as everyday as enjoying a beverage. Halloween in the 1960s was a delightful blend of traditional and emerging new trends in celebrating the spooky holiday. In neighborhoods across the United States, children dressed in a variety of costumes. In 1969, a high school teacher in Denver, Colorado, would have been a figure deeply influenced by both the traditional values of education and the rapidly changing social and cultural landscape of the late 1960s. In 1967, Seattle was a city in the midst of transformation, reflecting both its traditional Pacific Northwestern roots and the bourgeois culture, changing sweeping across the United States during 1960s. In 1961, during the height of the Cold War, the concept of a family visiting a fallout shelter was not just a precautionary measure, but also a sign of the times. The fear of nuclear warfare was a real concern. A street view of New York City in 1960s would offer a vibrant snapshot of urban life during a dynamic era in the city's history. This was a time when New York was a bustling metropolis, known for its towering skyscrapers. In 1963, the scene of fun, which a fire hydrant in Harlem, would be a vivid and lively portrayal of community life during a hot summer in New York City. During this era, before the widespread availability of air conditioning. In 1969, Beverly Hills, California, was a showcase of the vibrant and electric fashion trends of the late 1960s, especially among the younger generation. Students deeply influenced by the era's cultural shifts and the bourgeois counterculture. Barefoot biking on a motorcycle in the late 1960s captures a scene of rebellious freedom and nonconformity that defined much of the youth culture of the time. In 1967, during the Vietnam War, American soldiers found various ways to cope with the harsh realities of combat and the challenges of being far from home. One common form of escapism was reading magazines and Playboy. The photo seems typical of American teenagers in the 1950s. The young couple is dressed in the style of the time. The girl is wearing fashionable short shorts and a blouse that were popular among young people of the period. In the photo, we see a young couple enjoying a day at the beach, a typical vacation for teenagers in the 1950s in the United States. The boy standing firmly on the sand with his shirt off lifts the girl. In the photo, we see teenagers enjoying ice cream in a typical 1950s American establishment. A boy in a sweater and a girl in a light dress share a moment of joy and camaraderie. Our team did our best to make this video interesting for you guys. We'd appreciate your likes and subscribe. Enjoy! The photo shows two teenage girls in fashionable 1970s clothing. They are standing with their backs to the wall, wearing high-waisted jeans with bell bottoms and brightly colored jackets, reflecting the fashion trends of the decade. In this photo, two young girls, probably teenagers, pose next to a classic 1950s car in America. One is sitting on the hood and the other is standing next to them, both in casual clothing typical of the era. The image depicts a group of teenage boys wearing collared shorts that were popular in the 1950s in the United States. They are arranged behind each other in pyramid, which is a typical pose for friendly photos of the time. The photograph shows four young teenage girls standing side by side in front of a school or college entrance. They are dressed in typical 1950s clothing, short shorts, blouses, and collared shorts, and wear socks with flat shoes. The photo depicts a group of teenagers having fun on a swing set near a house. Dressed in casual clothes at the time, they recreate the typical atmosphere of youth leisure in the 1950s in the United States. The photo shows a teenager and a girl dressed in a typical 1950s clothing, which is indicative of their youth and the fashion of the time. The boy wears a checkered short and jeans. The girl a light blouse, dark skirt, and cardigan. The photo shows a teenager sitting on a bicycle in his yard. He is wearing an open shirt and jeans, which was typical of the youth attire in the 1950s in the United States. A group of young workers, probably from a textile factory in the early 20th century, they are dressed in work clothes typical of the era and standing in the factory environment, indicating the harsh working conditions. We see a group of young women on the beach, dressed in bathing suits and hats typical of the 1920s. This image reminds us of evolution of beach fashion and the development of outdoor recreation in the early 20th century. People at a school dance, immersed in the atmosphere of the evening. The couple in the center of the image, dressed in formal wear, is dancing a slow dance, reflecting a typical scenario for school events in the United States. The photograph shows two young men next to a motorcycle, demonstrating the rebel style of the 1950s. One of them is wearing an iconic leather jacket, while the other is wearing a white t-shirt and sitting on a motorcycle. This image depicts a typical day in a high school newspaper office in the 1950s in the United States. The teenager in the front is seriously focusing on editing articles, which emphasizing the dedication to learning and activities of student life. The photo shows a guy dressed in a cowboy shirt with a car standing next to a classic 1950s American pickup truck. Next to him is a man leading dogs and a horse standing in the background in the cargo area of pickup. The photograph shows three young men standing next to their motorcycles on a dirt road, possibly on the outskirts of a city or a rural area. They are dressed in simple but stylish clothing typical of the 1950s youth culture in the United States. In this photo, two girls are enjoying a day at the river, sitting in an inflatable boat. Dressed in swimsuits that were fashionable in the 1950s, they represent the summer recreational culture of young people at the time. Young people dancing in the street near a portable radio lying on the ground. This image reflects the popularity of street dancing among American youth in the 1950s, when rock and roll became synonymous with teenage rebellion. The photo shows teenagers dancing in an energetic and fun style that characterizes the youth culture of the 1950s. One couple in the center is performing an acrobatic move that emphasizes the popularity of rock and roll dancing. Four teenagers sitting on the edge of one truck, dressed in typical 1970s hippie attire, worn jeans and light shorts. Their hairstyles and relaxed postures reflect the free spirit and ease of the counterculture of the time. The photograph depicts three young people sitting relaxed in a cafe or bar. Their style of dress and accessories reflect the urban fashion and youth culture that was popular at the time. The photograph depicts two women posing happily as they lean out of the window of a gold-colored sports car. Their hairstyles, clothing, and sunglasses reflect the style and fashion trends of the late 20th century. Group of young people sitting on the back of classic American car overflowing with surfboards. This image reflects the surfing and beach culture that was particularly popular among young people in California. The photograph shows two young female fans, presumably at a concert or public event, impressed and emotionally reacting. They are wearing t-shirts with the words The Beatles on them, 1960s.
The photo shows a group of teenagers chatting in a dinner. The young man on the left looks admiringly at the girl sitting across him, while the others smile and laugh as they engage in lively conversation.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next video.